Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Engineering for me today. The one I like to say engineering and producing today. The one and only Naboo. How are you doing, my dear brother?
I'm doing excellent. Excited for this show. So much to talk about today.
We have a lot to talk about. And you know what? As you guys know, this show belongs to whom again? To you guys. It belongs to all of you. So in as much as I always have a subject ready to go, you can always bring that subject in. Again, we are going to have a great show for you today. The title of the show today is, it's a tough one, and I'm going to be brutally honest. I want you guys to realize this. I am going to be brutally honest on this particular issue because I do need to. I do think we need folks to be honest with what these items, with these things mean. So we will talk about it. So we have two subjects today. But anyway, let's go to the title of the show. Cop finally convicted of murdering black man. And Bernie and Warner right, or meaning correct, on wealth tax. Two stories. The conviction of this cop was very important for several reasons. And a wealth tax is a mathematical necessity lest virtual slavery convergence. And what that means, we'll talk about during the show. At last, we have a cop convicted for murdering a black man. It is important. There must be no sympathy for the cop who murdered the black man in his home. Too many will talk about it being an accident. We will discuss this in my rant in the blog of the week. Bernie and Elizabeth are doing what has to be done to save the country. A wealth tax. A wealth tax is the only thing between virtual slavery and freedom. Is that brash enough for you, Naboo?
Absolutely.
Virtual slavery or freedom? Anyhow, before I get to the program, I want to remind all my listeners that KPFT is a bastion of intelligent voices and programs. As a political activist myself, my favorites are Think Wing Radio with
Mike Honig on Monday at 3 p.m.
Of course, we have Open Journal with
Dwayne Bradley and the crew on Mondays at 6 p.m.
And then we have my good old show, Jazz Latino Afro-Cuban Latin Jazz, at its very best, hosted by
Juan Flores and Lupita. That's on Tuesdays at 12 to noon before this show.
And then the magic comes right after this show, brothers and sisters. The magic comes. So you guys better stick around after this show because we have Jenner Asian Radio,
you're so kind.
Weekly radio program featuring an eclectic mix of Asian underground, Bhangra, Bollywood, funk, Hindi, Rai, where ancient sounds meet future beats. And we'll talk about that, Naboo.
Hey, that's with me, my crew, Yogi, Alex, Felix, and Dave as well. Tuesdays from 4 to 6. And don't miss it because it's right after the show.
Hey, folks, look, let me tell you something. You know I'm not going to lie to you. I love that show. That show brings all kinds of beats to you. Better be here, man. You got to be here to listen to that stuff, you know. We talk politics, but we like to pachanguear también. Queremos bailar, queremos hacer todo. So,
sí.
Así es la vida, hombre. Anyway, check out our full schedule at kpft.org, where you can find programming from music to politics to medicine to the eclectic. KPFT is a listener-supported public community radio station. So please remember that if you like what you hear, visit kpft.org and ensure we remain a strong, viable community radio station that provides news, programming, and information not influenced by whom, Nabu?
The corporatocracy.
Folks, we got to remember that. We have to remember who has your interests at hand. We have to remember who is working for you, not just for some, but for all. We have to remember what it is really, really all about. And if it's not about you, if politics is not about you, my brothers and my sisters, who possibly can it be about? So we need to get busy right here, folks. We need to get busy. But, folks, do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, the weekly blog post today is titled, At Last. At last. No, I'm not going to do that. At last, a police officer convicted for murdering a black man. Weaning off the Trump effect, is that what it is? Anyhow, folks, last night, I feared the worst. A friend posted a message illustrating that businesses in Dallas feared for the worst. They knew the likelihood was high that yet another police officer who murdered a black man would get off. Yesterday, I was concerned. I was very concerned after reading that the judge in the case surprisingly allowed the jury to consider the Castle Doctrine in favor of the police officer. That move gave the jury a path to acquit this police officer. And I digress a minute from the blog of the week. The Castle Doctrine says, if you're in your home, if you're in your car, if you're in your property, and somebody comes in to assault you, they can use deadly force on you. Okay? Now, look, I'm a humanist. I believe in people. I love humanity. I believe that takes it a bit too far. But that's the law of the land. That's the law in Texas, the Castle Doctrine. If somebody comes into my house, I have the ability or the right to take my gun, my knife, my bat, my whatever, and kill that person. Arcane, but that is the law. Okay? Well, that police officer who went into that man's house, she invaded his space. Technically speaking, he had the ability, the right to use the Castle Doctrine on that police officer. That police officer went into that guy's apartment without a warrant. She busted through the door and if he had a gun, he had the right to shoot and kill her under the Castle Doctrine's tenets. But here's the kicker. Here is the kicker. The judge in the case said that the jury could use the Castle Doctrine not for the guy who got killed, not for the guy whose space was invaded. She gave the jury a path to acquit because that officer believed they were in their own, supposedly in their own apartment. She could use the Castle Doctrine to kill the actual owner of that apartment. I mean, what gives? What gives? Can I go ahead and get drunk, speed, kill somebody with my car and said, I think I wasn't drunk? Can I go ahead and shoot somebody and say, I think this restaurant was my home, so I apply the Castle Doctrine because I think this restaurant is my home. I'll apply the castle doctrine. I am kind of wacky, you know what I mean? I couldn't do that. That is how silly it was for that judge to do that. So yesterday I was very concerned after reading that the judge in the case surprisingly allowed the jury to consider the castle doctrine in favor of the police officer. That move gave the jury a path to acquit this police officer. Well, it would not be this time. The jury that convicted police officer Amber Guire looked more like the community, largely made up of women and people of color. And folks, now my rant. In these Trump times, there are too many that try to use any excuse to unleash their most inner prejudice. Thankfully, just maybe enough are no longer fallen for their carnal and learned inhumanity. Again, I want to repeat that. Thankfully, just maybe enough are no longer fallen for their carnal and learned inhumanity. Many will have a soft spot for this police officer. It was an accident, many will say. This was more than an accident. Too many are predisposed to react to people of color as if they are inherently more violent. It is not true. And police officers should know the correlation between crime and socioeconomic and learn to act accordingly. Okay? The police officers that do these types of killing, they know the truth. They know that predisposition to crime is not race-based. They know it. Every single police officer knows that. You know why? Because they are on the front lines. When they go to Timbuktu, Appalachia, they know who's committing the crime there because of socioeconomic reasons. When they go into Timbuktu ghetto, they know that who is predisposed for crime based on socioeconomic reason. When they go to Timbuktu barrios, they know that. They know it. They are exposed to all the crime. If they go into a neighborhood that has a higher socioeconomic status, they know that it's unlikely they will face what they face in these areas. It's not race-based. It is always based on other issues. The cops know it. When you see cops do what they do, it's because they are what? Let me use a kinder word. Oh, they're prejudiced. They know it. Police officers know it. They know the truth. I have too many videos of police officers showing restraint with violent white men and showing utter violence against black men, men of color, complying or resisting mildly. I have a video that I got with police officers in cars running through neighborhoods in the Midwest, running after this guy. He broke into a home, broke out of a window. He attacked the police officers with a knife. He attacked them with glass that broke from the house that he did. And not once did they draw their gun to kill. You know what they drew? The tasers. People, let's get frank and be honest with why we have the killings by police officers many a times. They always, and by the way, my brother police officers, I love you guys, you know that. But too many bad ones need to be extricated. Too many bad ones need, very good ones, but there are a lot of bad ones, and even good ones are bad for following the blue line. Even good ones are bad for following the blue line. By not going against what you know you see, what you know is there. Now, Americans must learn that they have allowed the media, politicians, and law enforcement to promote a lie. TV overstates people of color crime and mute white crime. I repeat, TV and all these other guys, they overstate POC crime, people of color crime, and mute white crime. I stopped my blog post to tell a little story. A friend of mine, he got into trouble, all right? When he got into trouble, he went ahead and he got a good lawyer. The lawyer got him deferred adjudication. And he went to his, where the mass of people, they get together and they have all the people there. He called me in shock. He called me in utter shock. He said, Egberto, la mayoría de la gente aquí eran gringos. The vast majority of people in that room with him, they were of the other side. They were white and he said, wait a minute. When I went to this the criminal justice system. Anyway, we'll continue with that in a little bit. But it is imperative, folks. They have lied to us all. They've done this for a reason, okay? My white brothers and sisters, they've lied to you. They've made you scared of folks who look like you know what, because it's by design, and it's all economic. It falls into our economic system. It falls into capitalism. It falls into all these issues to control us all. When I preach these things and I try to tie these things together, sometimes people said, are you crazy? No, I'm not. I always ask, please listen, because they're all tied together and it's all by design. It is imperative that we educate ourselves to end not only the violence by many police officers against people of color, but the programming of America intent of having them believe that people of color commit more crimes. Two very important notes, my brothers and my sisters. If police officers are more forgiving of white people misdeeds and not to people of color, while the data may show a crime bias towards people of colors, it is simply due to bad data. The data does not reflect what is really happening on the ground. Where I live, many kids get off with a ride home or an admonition from a police officer. In the neighborhoods of people of color, they go to jail, and data entry is made, starting the world of skewed crime statistics. Because you know what? A record is created in the database, and now you have them in the database. If my white brothers and sisters don't show up in the database because the police says, go ahead, no, don't worry about it, or please do right the next time. But that doesn't happen in Studewood or these other places in Houston. What does the data that the FBI gets tell you? It skews what you're seeing. It's so important for us to understand the way the trickery works. So let's be happy that a Dallas jury did their civic duty. Let's be happy that for a change, a black man was treated like a human being within the criminal justice system. As a black man with many definitions, as a black man, as a Latino, as a Caribbean man. I watched this particular case for one specific reason. I stay away from the criminal. I'm taking off my host hat now and I'm putting on my black Latino Caribbean hat on now. You're speaking to Egberto Willies, a black man, a Caribbean man, and a Latino man. When I saw this case, I tell you, I don't get scared or anything like that. But I sat down and I say, man, even in your own home, okay, let's say it's an accident. I'll accept it's an accident. But even if a conviction did not occur, I would have had to say, even in my own home, I know that there's no repercussion for a cop coming in and killing me. I tell you, if that cop had gotten off, what that would have told to every person of color, to every black man, to every Latino, to every Caribbean man, to every Asian man. You know, when they complain when people talk about Black Lives Matter, oh, that's race. No, it is trying to say all our lives matters, but you don't count black lives. You don't count these other lives. Finally, a jury that looked like America said, we are going to do the right thing. As a black man with many other definitions, I will continue to try my best to stay clear of the system as we slowly try to make it less racist, less classist, and less inhumane. That is the definition of our criminal justice system. Finally, Finally, this time, it worked. 713-526-5738. 713-526-5738. Please give me a call. Tell me what your thoughts are. And after we go through this, if we don't get a whole lot on this police stuff, we'll then move on to the taxing the wealthy. But anyhow, let me take my first call. Ryan, and all lines are open after Ryan. So call on 713-526-5738. Come on in, Ryan.
Hey, it's good to speak to you again. It's been 2.5 years since we last spoke.
Yes, sir. Talk to me.
Well, first and foremost, I forgot to ask whoever was answering the phones. Is this show open forum?
You can talk. I mean, I take calls. I have a message, but I take calls. And if you decide that you just want to say something, this show belongs to you all, my friend.
Great. Okay, I have a question. Not accusing or anything. I'm just asking a question.
Sure, that's fine.
You're a Daily Kos contributor, right?
What's that?
You're a contributor to that site, the Daily Kos, right?
I'm a contributor to Daily Kos, Op-Ed News, and a whole bunch of other sites. Yes, sir.
Okay. How do you feel about Marcos, the guy who owns Daily Kos, for mocking the coal miners for losing their benefits because they voted for Trump, who in turn was responsible for the loss of said benefits, as well as Marcos also attacking and smearing Bernie Sanders, Jill Stein, Susan Sarandon, etc. And I assure you, this is a thing that actually happened.
First of all, I know Marcos personally. Marcos is a friend, okay? And let me tell you that just like us, much of what many progressives say are taken out of context, so is what he says taken out of context. And let me tell you about the coal miners, etc. All right? The coal miners, as you know, the coal miners have been strong supporters of Donald Trump and Republicans all along. And what many folks have been trying to express is, look, the people who are on your side, the people who are giving you Medicare for all, the people who are wanting to clear your black lungs disease, the people who are wanting to bring industry to your part of the world are the progressives. And if we are trying to bring these things to you, and you continue to vote against your own interests as we bring it to you, maybe we shouldn't I don't take that stance. My stance is I continue to communicate. I don't know if you've listened to my show before.
I have multiple times.
And what I do.
We spoke 2 years ago.
Right. Yeah, that's right. You did say that. Sorry for forgetting that. Now, let me tell you what I do, Ryan. Let me tell you what I do. We all have different tactics in the way we try to move our progressive message. My thing is constant communication. Constant communication. Some people don't have the patience that I have to do that, but I do. In other words, I think many people currently voting on the conservative side are voting to kill themselves. I think many people voting on the conservative side, they have allowed themselves to be used by a people that care nothing about them. And my goal in life is to try to find a manner in which I can communicate to earn the trust of those who continuously do that, to say, let me listen to Egberto one time and see if he has the ability to really point out to me what I cannot see. Go ahead, sir.
I get it.
You follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's all.
In a way.
So what I'm saying going forward, my friend, I don't know where you stand on the conservative and by the way, folks, we have open lines, and I know you guys want to call in 713-526-5738, 713-526-5738. After Ryan, if nobody calls, I'm going to the other thing.
In case you're wondering, I'm staunch populist left.
You're staunch. I thought you were conservative.
Oh, no, on the contrary.
Okay. Well, let me tell you. But no, what I'm trying to what I try to do to people is, or not do to people, what I try to do is tell folks straight up, look, we need to get together, to work together to really solve this problem. The conservatives are killing us. The neoliberal Democrats are killing us. And we have to do the right thing going forward, because there's nobody that's going to look out for us better than we can look out for ourselves.
Perhaps so, but I still think he wasn't right to mock the coal miners, Marcos, that is.
Say that again?
I still don't think Marcos was right to mock the coal miners.
You know, let me tell you this, okay? I don't do the mocking kind of a thing, okay? I don't do that. I can't, but you can't tell me sometimes you don't get frustrated when you're trying to help those who are killing themselves.
I can certainly understand in a way.
You know, I mean, and that's a lot of what happened, because think about this. When we have those people who continue to vote against their interests, which means what they're also doing is voting against our interests. What do I mean by they're voting against phone ringing? What do I mean by they're voting against our interests? Because they're adding the delta to the votes, it is hurting us. Example, if Medicare for All fails because we have 10% of the people that otherwise would have voted for Medicare for All, it hurts us all. So when it's not enough to just for them to not do it, they're also hurting us. And we have to get to that point to realize it. And that's why I keep doing my talking. That's
of course.
You see what I'm saying? But anyhow, anything else that I need to talk to you about, sir?
That's it. That's everything.
Thank you so kindly. You have a wonderful day, sir.
Likewise.
Bye-bye. Okay, let's go to Louis. Come on in, Louis.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, sir. And
Listen, I
hold 1 second, sir. Folks, we still have open lines, 713-526-5738. 713-526-5738. Please don't wait till the end where I have to get into a rush and rush people out, because I want to be able to talk to you. Okay, go ahead, Louis.
I was really surprised that verdict came down so strong.
I was too.
Being a former Dallasite and seeing the atrocities that were committed against Black Americans and Hispanic Americans, I'll never forget this little associate of mine, Miguel Sanchez.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he was about 7 years younger than I am, and he was put in a police car, in the back seat of a police car,
mm-hmm.
and the police wanted to play Russian roulette with his gun.
Yeah.
And to scare him. And the bullet went off and killed the little boy.
Yeah.
Nothing was done to this police officer because it was an accident.
Right.
But vengeance is hanging like a dark cloud over that kind of stuff. I mean, you're gonna see all type of vengeance. I mean, it's coming from the Most High, because he's the cup of iniquity is filled, and vengeance must be administered, because we can't match these people. They got all the artillery, they got all the guns, and I don't want to be in that type of fight.
Right.
I'll just let God take care of it.
Yeah, let me tell you, we have to be cognizant of all this. Like I said, I watched this particular case in detail, and if this hadn't gone the way it did, Louis, it would have been devastating to just about every POC, every person of color. Because at that point, it tells you that not even your castle can be your castle.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, because, like I said, I'm a person who, look, I'm a professional. I own my own company. I've followed the rules. And I still never, ever feel safe when I see those red lights behind me. Never. So I stay away from the system as best I can. Now,
yes,
one of the ways to stay away from the system best you can is to stay your butt home when possible as well. And if you're not even safe at home,
man, I've been, I tell you, when you're safe, when you get to be about 50, 55 years of age, and then no longer you consider a threat to them.
Right. Well,
but I went through my whole life, man. I never had a problem with those guys.
Right. Well, let me tell you, when I get stopped by the police officers, I'm very, very respectful, even if they are, and most, I must admit, in Houston, most have been respectful to me. In fact, I got an officer commendation because he was so respectful. He also got me off. I came here to KPFT, and I commended him because I think when they do good things, you commend them as well. And this officer got a community award for what we kind of spoke about him, et cetera, because he did a good thing. I think, put it this way, though, I do think he stopped me for driving while black. But in the process, he was very nice, and you're coming downstairs. I know I didn't do what he said that I did, but okay. But again, he was nice, and eventually he let me off. He said, "This is just a warning." And after he was nice, I said, "Hey, let me take a picture with you." I took a picture, created a blog. The blog went viral, all that good stuff. But
isn't that's ironic, because that's the same thing I did to an officer just about 2 weeks ago. I've been stopped 6 times, and 5 times I got wanted. Because I'm over that age, I'm not 30 anymore, you know. And that officer was so nice. He was so nice, Hispanic young man.
Right.
And I called in and complimented that guy, man, and his supervisor was so elated to hear that somebody called in and complimented his troops.
Well, and that's what I do. I mean, if I am treated well by a public servant, whether it's a police officer, even somebody at the DNB who goes above and beyond, I try to. I think that positive affirmation should be something we do. It sort of bleeds more positive. So I think it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, I can agree with you, sir. I didn't get your first name.
This is Egberto, Egberto. That's
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It was real nice talking to you, sir.
It was a pleasure, my friend. You have a wonderful day, okay?
You too, sir.
All right. Thank you. Folks, 713-526-5738, 713-526-5738. We have open lines. I have Tori, then MOD. Come on in, Tori.
Hey, just a little bit of history here.
Yes, sir.
Couple things connecting Rodney King in L.A. to Houston and Dallas. Back when Reagan was president, there was a Republican convention in Dallas. Me and friends were going up there to, protest against Reagan. And I remember, starting to pay attention to some Dallas newspapers when I was up there. And there was one, the day that I got there, it was a story. Then it was like on page 14 of a policeman in Dallas, instead of like trying to chase after some black kid that had, committed some minor crime, some teenager, there was a tall chain link fence between them. And instead of trying to run around and chase this kid down, he just took an aim, between the chain link fence, just took aim and shot this kid as he was running away. And murdered him, killed him. And, we had 2 newspapers in Houston at the time, the Chronicle and the Post.
And the Post, right.
And it was really common to see these things, once a week, and it's always page 10, page 14, never on the front page, and nobody had phones, with cameras out, and so we didn't catch it like we do now. And so it was much, much worse back in the day, as, almost anybody will tell you that's older. And, okay, so Houston has a history of being run by the KKK. Chief Pappy Bond, who was police chief back in the 70s or so, you can still find this article online, and it was a press conference, Chief Pappy Bond, this was in the Post, and some reporter asked him, hey, what's up with that Ku Klux Klan recruiting poster in the dressing room of the police department, which had been hanging there for 20 years? And, and the response, Chief Pappy Bond says, I don't see any contradictions. That's the response.
Wow.
And so anyway, we get a new cool mayor, Kathy Whitmire. It was really a revolutionary move. She fired the police chief. She brought in Lee P. Brown from Atlanta. And any kind of bureaucracy, for-profit, non-profit, any kind of bureaucracy, when you really want to shake stuff up, you bring somebody in from the outside instead of bringing somebody up from the inside. And so Kathy Whitmire, to her credit, she shook up the police department by bringing in this black guy from Atlanta. And whether he was any good or not, what was important was that half of the police in Houston quit. And at the exact same time, you saw billboards, huge billboards on Southwest Freeway from Los Angeles. The city of Los Angeles is recruiting police officers in Houston. And there was so many cops in Houston quitting because they didn't want to work for a black guy because they were, Klan identified or, something like that. And so anyway, lots of cops from Texas went to L.A., and they formed their own little group inside the Los Angeles Police Department. They called themselves the Cowboys. And there was more than 100 of them. And they had their own, sort of class photo taken in their L.A. Police uniforms with cowboy boots and cowboy hats on. You can go, it's historical. You go look it up. The Cowboys, LAPD. And when Rodney King got the beat down, it turns out like more than half of those cops giving Rodney King the beat down were from Texas. That had left here to go to Los Angeles, where a cop can be a cop and you can just beat people down. Okay, then there's a race riot. Okay, we didn't get the race riot because we got Lee P. Brown, who integrated the police department, and L.A. got all these racist cops from Texas, and they got the race riot. Anyway.
That's a good set of history I didn't know about, sir.
Yeah, and so for like 5 years after Lee P. Brown became the police chief here, you just prayed that when somebody was stopping you that it was going to be one of these new cops, one of these fresh recruits, somebody of color, not just black, but Hispanic too. They always had black and Hispanic, but they let them work in the jail, let them work in, some office job or something, but they weren't patrol officers. And then after Lee P. Brown, you got a lot of patrolmen out on the streets, and you're just, please, 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 let it be a woman or a person of color, which were the new patrol officers, because they were, for about 5 years, they were always really professional and really polite and just, thank you, ma'am, thank you, sir, and good day to you. And then it kind of got normal, and they kind of, joined the good old boys, and now they're all just kind of cops, like it wasn't as bad, still not as bad as it used to be, but it used to be really bad, even worse than it is now.
Well, look,
that's it.
Thanks for that history, Tori. You have a wonderful day, okay?
All right, cheers.
Take care now. Bye-bye. Okay, let's go to MOD. Come on in, MOD.
Hello.
Yes, you're here.
Woo. Yeah, is it okay if I add to the...
Yeah, go ahead.
Tori's tale of the tape there?
Sure.
So, I'll just say first, in Huey Newton's second last book, the FBI is mention of taking over the KKK in 1942. I don't know if you know who Huey Newton was. He was
yes, I do.
With Malcolm X and was the guy MLK, Martin Luther King. He wrote some good books there toward the end there, 70s.
Okay, so anyway, go ahead. Make your point, my brother.
In Houston, what happened here in Houston, yeah, it's pretty cool, huh? What happened here in Houston in the 70s when Pappy Bond, O-Red, was running the police chief, my dad was teaching at U of H, and he was in Slater Martin was a bar downtown. That's where Torres used to frequent. This guy named Joe Campus Torres. And a cop came in, a police officer, my dad always says, use the right title. Police officer came into the bar and wanted to know whose green truck was parked in front of the bar. And then after going through the whole bar, he went to the bar, in the bar, and Torres said it's his. Mm-hmm. And so, the officer, pushed him out of the bar and tried to, I guess, commence whipping him, but the officer didn't know that Torres served 2 years in Vietnam Special Forces.
Okay, Modi, you got to tell me what the story is.
I just started.
Okay, go ahead.
Cool, man. So anyway, he took that one officer down, and then another unit showed up, and then there's 7 officers showed up, and they hogtied Torres. That they finally, they didn't kill him, but they hogtied him and threw him behind the Coliseum. So it wasn't Kathy Whitmire. It wasn't good or black or white or black. It was the feds. The feds came in after those officers were acquitted because the agitators that came into the Heights after that Tuesday night of those officers being acquitted flipped over police cars and set businesses on fire. And they weren't from Houston. And that's why that's what I'm going to get to here in a moment real quick, Alberto, is that the folks that caused the Moody Park riots were not all from Houston. And anyway, that, like L.A., Ronnie King created a national outcry. And the feds came into Houston, and they basically kicked Poppy Bond, O-Red, out because he was allowing Aryan TDC convicted felons to run and manage the city jail. That's against law. That's against federal law. You can't have a federal convict, as a trustee managing a city jail. So that's what got Pappy Bond kicked out during old Fred Hoffein's era. So that's what happened. But I'll finish with this. I want to talk about the taxes, actually, because but let me finish with this one then. Thanks.
No, go to the taxes because I gotta get to the next subject. So
okay.
Go ahead.
I'll say then, and I'm looking at mid-press. I'm looking at 2 out of 4 police officers in the last 5 years that have assault minorities or anybody, like running away from being pulled over and shot in the back, were trained in Israel. The New York Police Department has a bureau in Israel, and it's called Tactical Training. And I'm reading this mid-press article, and I'm looking at I'm source checking it against several other papers. Department of Homeland Security has a program for sending.
MOD, I got to go to the other subject because I love you, but you're rambling too much with all of this.
No, that last part was really clear, wasn't it?
Okay, I got to go.
Police departments at 2 out of 4 police
MOD,
shootings.
Thank you so kindly for calling. I got to let you go. Bye. All right. Folks, that was MOD, but here we want to talk about the wealth tax. Bernie is right to use this type of tax to slow corporate theft on workers. Bernie is right to use this type of tax. Here goes. Some Americans believe Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are wrong to use for using taxes to fix our system. Here is why it is this way, or the pitchforks cometh. In other words, if we don't start taxing wealth, eventually, and this not in the far distant future, we can start looking for the pitchforks. A few months ago, I described how Trump's tax cut scam was a strategic and hidden way to rip off Americans by transferring their wealth to the rich. And in that particular article, what I said was there are 6 ways. There are six ways that how did I write it? Let me go ahead and read it. The wealthy there are 6 ways that the wealthy really got back their money from the tax cut scam. Numero uno, the wealthy brought back overseas profit at reduced tax rates enacted in the Trump tax cut. So when they brought back their money, they brought it back in reduced rates. Overseas profits were mostly invested in stock buybacks because the incomes being realized as capital gains are taxed at a lower rate. They get a break as well. The government must borrow money to fulfill its obligation. Who do you think buy the bonds? The rich people who got the money back. And the government cut programs like healthcare and food stamps and the like. And when they do that, that was what again? Who paid for that? You did. And economic growth that helps the poor and middle class is stunted because in Economics 101, the parlance is the marginal propensity to consume by the wealthy is much less than that of the person who is spending the money. So there's a lot of ways that these guys went ahead and took their money back. Mike, I'm coming to you in a minute. But to be clear, our tax system for decades has allowed the rich and corporations to deduct things we cannot, and as such keep a bigger portion of the pie. 2 of the biggest culprits are capital gains and property taxes. There is no reason that income from gains one makes in their stocks should be taxed at a lower rate than people who go out and work every day. It is an entitlement for the rich. Come on, phone. Okay, it's an entitlement for the rich. Everybody pay property taxes on their most important assets. They pay property taxes on their homes, their cars, and much more. Why should we shield the assets of the wealthy, which is stocks, bonds, and other financial assets from taxes? Why should we shield them from that? We should not shield them if we have to pay these taxes on our homes, our cars, etc. It is theft. After all, the military and economic activity of us all ensures their capital is safe. They must pay for that. They must pay for us to help keep their confounded you-know-what. So please read the article that I have here in the blog as I go ahead and go off to Sam. And Mike, give us a call back. I am done with that article, so give us a call back. Come on in, Sam.
Hi. I was just thinking about people saying that 1%ers shouldn't be paying taxes. Well, they did in the 40s. Franklin Roosevelt got all the 1%ers together. Even Prescott Bush was in on it and told them, hey, the rest of America is paying for World War II. They're not only paying taxes, they're paying war bonds on top of that.
Right.
That was a great generation. But the 1%ers didn't want to do that. But the communists, the socialists, the unions told Franklin last time he was running, hey, if they don't pay for it, we're not going to support you in the next election. So Franklin had to get these one percenters together, Prescott Bush and all the Rothschilds and everybody else, all the American millionaires, billionaires, and told them, look, guys, everybody else is paying taxes. You need to pay too. So when they asked him how much are we going to pay, he told them 100%. Once they got over the shock and they negotiated, they got it down to about 95%. And we paid for World War II, and that's how we paid for the war. And then we had lots of money left over. But the rich people got back on everybody that voted for Franklin. They went after the socialists, and they went after the communists, but they did it one at a time. And then they went to the unions, busting them up. But because of all that money they brought in, we were able to pay for the Marshall Plan that
in Europe, yeah,
they had saved Europe and also saved Japan.
Right.
And that's when we had a great economy in the States. We paid for the GI Bill and the benefits to the veterans. So the one percenters can pay taxes, and that'll help everybody. So
you know, Sam, let me tell you. First of all, I understand what you're saying. You're absolutely right. The reason why a lot of middle-class Americans and there are two reasons why middle-class Americans many times or somehow don't want to sock it to the rich, if you will. Number one, they think it's unfair. And number two, they think they're going to be rich at some point in their life. It's economically, or rather mathematically, impossible for that to be the case because of the way the economy grow and the extraction that they have. So I'm glad that you said that. Now, here's the thing. Most people that are rich are not entitled to what they have. We have to start asserting our worth. Americans, every American need to start asserting their worth. The reality is the worth, the $160 billion that Jeff Bezos has, and I say this every chance I get to say, it's not his money. People say, well, he had an idea. Well, Sam, I know you have a whole lot of ideas. You just didn't turn it into capital. Bezos decided that I'm going to learn capitalism and turn it into capital, and in the process of turning it into capital, I know how to skim everybody's worth and make it mine. That's what it's all about. I take what you can give me, give you back some of it, and make most of it mine. And so what we have to inculcate in the minds of people, Sam, is that when we talk about taxing the wealthy, it's not an unfair thing, and it's not a favor the wealthy is doing to us. In fact, what we have done is a big deal for the wealthy. We are the ones who made them wealthy. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah. And like the Starbucks CEO said, we can't do that. But we already did it, and the economy was great, and it helped everybody in the country.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely. Thank you very much, Sam, for the call. Anything else you want to say real quick before I go to the other caller?
Nope, there was some other stuff, but that's okay. I'll talk to you later sometime.
Thank you so kindly, sir. You have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening, and please remember to share. Bye-bye.
Will do. Bye.
Okay, come on in, Johnny. Folks, 713-526-5738. We can take a few more calls till the time is going to be up. 713-526-5738. Hey, is this Johnny?
Yes.
Hey, Johnny.
Not Carson, not the one with all the money.
Hey, okay, you're not the Johnny with all the money?
No, just the regular Johnny.
Dang. I thought it was Johnny with the money. Go ahead, my brother.
I want to refer the today's KPFT listeners who might be still on the fence about whether they're going to vote for Trump or some other Republican. Also, for people who are on the fence about this idea about Bernie's socialism and government control of health care and taking away people's wealth. I want to refer them to a program this morning that aired on KPFT. I'm not sure what time. I think it was right after Democracy Now! Sonali Kohaktar. KPFT's been carrying her program lately. And I think she airs at 8 o'clock. So in the 8 o'clock hour on KPFT's archive, they had an interesting conversation this morning. I heard parts of it because I was in and out of the house. But I heard enough of it to understand that Bernie Sanders' proposal for tax on wealth is to my right. So you know that's got the Republican seal of approval when you know that people with several $100 million of wealth would only be paying $25,000 of tax wealth in 1 year. That's pretty modest.
Right, it is. Look, you know what is so funny about it? Here, these are some numbers. Why I try to tell, math is absolute, right? And what I try to tell people is, if we don't start taxing wealth, eventually wealth takes us all over and we become slaves. And I wasn't kidding when I said that. And because it is serious, here's the simple math. If the wealthy grows at, and I'm just going to use relative numbers, but they'll change, right? But if the wealthy grows at 7% and everybody else grows at 2%, that means the wealthy is taking capital out of a bigger share of the pie, and eventually they will have it all. That's number one. Number two is the only way you can recapture that is through taxes. Now, here it is that you're saying taxes grow at 7% and you're only asking back, or rather, their wealth grows at 7% and you're asking back for 2%. You're still behind the curve. All you're doing is slowing. If we go through with Elizabeth Warren's 2%, all we're doing is slowing down the demise. What we have to do is have a sliding scale that says we have to keep things balanced, and we adjust the taxes to ensure the economic system, if this is the same system we're going to keep, to ensure that it's balanced. So that, because again, we have to remember what the wealthy makes is not that they're inherently great. It's the excess labor of everybody else. We have to get that inculcated into the minds of people. It is when Jeff Bezos has $160 billion, it's not that he's worth that much more than you are. It's just that the economic system, the economic model that we have affords him to rip you off legally. Go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah, well, you're basically making a good argument for Bernie's wealth tax. Now, I'm on the fence about wealth tax because the way that's tricky depending on how you implement it.
Uh-huh.
But I don't have a problem with what Bernie proposes.
Right.
What I would like to do, and you already hinted at it, is for us to reinstitute a national progressive tax code at modest levels of what they had when Republican President Dwight D. Eisenhower was in office.
Right.
So that was like 70 or 75% for the ultra wealthy. That was the top rate.
Right.
We can't afford to do that. And by the way, they didn't pay 70% of their entire income. No, it's above a certain. I don't remember what the numbers are.
Well,
but let's say right now, if we would institute a 70% tax code, and let's say I'm making $50,000 a year. There's no way I'm going to be taxed at that 70% level. I might get 15, 20, 25% at most. But someone making, I don't know, $2 million, $5 million bucks a year, they get to keep their first $3-4 million. It's the last $1 or $2 million that gets taxed at the 70% rate. That's why we call it progressive.
But the other thing that you have to realize is that, first of all, you're correct. That is what happens. But even as such, right? We have to get what we have to teach or not make Americans aware of is our financial system or our economic system has an issue. If there's a lot of work to be done, if there's a whole lot of things that need done, healthcare, roads need to be fixed, and there are people to do it, there are people available to do it, and if you ever tell me we don't have the money to do it, then that's a failed economic system, because there's work and there are people.
If people are working every day and they're producing services and goods, there's sufficient wealth to do what needs to be done.
Right.
The trick is with capitalism and cash is cash is so fluid is it's easy for people at the top, the bosses, the employers, to take more than what they should be taking, and people at the bottom, they're not trained to argue and bargain. And furthermore, another thing we need to do to keep a return to the old ways, if we do pass progressive legislation, is to encourage the next generation to think like entrepreneurs. In other words, go into co-op style businesses with your close friends and family.
Exactly.
If we can get up to 40% of our economy as co-op based businesses and 60% of regulated capitalistic businesses, God, can you imagine how great life would be for everybody?
Well, we're getting there. I mean, look here. I interviewed Howard. I don't remember his last name. He runs a co-op in Cleveland. Okay, and they're very successful. It's almost Bartagran or something like that in Spain as well. These things work, and there are a lot of people working on it. So, I mean, Johnny, look, what we have to continue to do, right? You and myself and everybody else in the progressive space, in the activist progressive space, is to sort of enlighten people to what is out there, what is happening out there, because the biggest fear of the capitalists is that they cannot continue being the thieves that they are currently. Because they benefit from an ignorant population, they benefit from a scared population, and what we have to do is we have to make it untenable for them, and we have to make Americans bold enough to go out there and, what I always say, I wrote this article, assert your worth.
Yep, education's the key. Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is always
power. So as Randy Rhodes on Free Speech TV likes to say, go get some. Tune into the archive on KPFT today, this morning's program, and see that Bernie's proposal is not as radical as some Republicans like to color it as.
Well, you know what?
Have a good day.
Yeah, you have a good one. Thank you so kindly, Johnny. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed the show. We have about a minute and a half left to go here. Let me just tell you, first of all, don't not vote for a candidate because you are scared that this candidate cannot beat Donald Trump. Donald Trump never, ever won. He never won. He lost by 3 million votes. That he got 80,000 votes in 3 states that gave him the Electoral College shouldn't have you fearing. What it should have you is pissed off. What it should have you doing is saying, there's no way I'm going to give him that 40,000 votes in Pennsylvania. There's no way I'm going to give him that 10,000 votes in Michigan. There's no way I'm going to give him that 30,000 votes or so in Wisconsin. But no fear. Absolutely no fear. Every single person that runs can beat Donald Trump because he's an empty vessel with a false following. An empty vessel with a false following that has too many people scared of something that doesn't exist. So let's vote for the best candidate, the most progressive candidate, the one that's going to do the most for people. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you know what? I am out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.